My bad. I just started the recording now. Just a little bit late there. Okay, so yeah, we have a good grasp on all the general mechanics. I think where we're struggling a little bit with our ball is that we want to make sure we're relying a little bit more heavily on our damage. I'm gonna stream here for you real quick if you want to take a look. So in general, when it comes to just our shooting on ball, it's not very effective. Like he has a lot of fall off on his shots, so the further away you get, the less and less damage it's going to be. So first, already, like, you know, if we're not hitting headshots, this isn't really doing much damage, right? But we're gonna hit body shots here just so you can see the fall off a little bit more effectively, right? So we can kill somebody in about 38 shots, right? The further away we get, this is gonna be less and less to where we're back here, and I don't even think we can finish someone. Oh yeah, so we can. So that's 19 shots left. Okay, back here now we're not even, like, we're just tickling people, right? We're not even getting the kill in an entire clip. So you don't really do very fast or very efficient damage. So what your gun's good for is finishing off low HP targets, because it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like a beam, right? So it's pretty effective in killing targets. So we want to make sure that we're just relying on our abilities a bit more. We kind of spend a lot of time just not really doing much, and we want to make sure that we're kind of upping the pace of how much we're doing each fight. So it's kind of like actions per minute. We want to make sure we're doing more. So swing through more, slam more. It seems like we slam very infrequently. And most of the time when we do slam, it's through the usage of a grapple. Now, I know that you're aware of the tech because you were trying to do it off the cart, but there's only once that you ended up using this. Of pretty much, you can jump and slam off of anything, right? You can jump and slam off of a ledge. You can slam off of this ledge. You can look bottom right and you see it comes off a cooldown there. If you jump off here, you can jump off of that. You can jump off of this thing right here, right? And that comes off of cooldown. So you can slam. You can jump off of this thing right there. You can roll up to a high ground and slam off of the high ground, right? So we can, if we don't want to use grapple, which means that we don't use the cooldown. So, like, for example, if we use mines here by just rolling up to the high ground and mining, then slamming, now we have grapple to get out, right? So if you if you can engage without the usage of your grapple, then you have your grapple to go and do something else, right? So just look to utilize that much more often, because we kind of hold on to our slam a little bit sometimes. Like we were talking about with your engage angles, don't feel like you always have to kind of go in and get out by just using the main frontal angle, because this is going to make it super easy for people to, like, you know, if they're all looking this way, right, they see you coming in, that makes it super easy for them to shoot at you, gives them extra time to shoot at you. It gives them much more time to prepare with stuns, right? And we'll just be having a lot less survivability. But if we come in from side angles, right, and we just kind of run into them from the side, and then we kind of add in a slam, right, then we can get out main and just do a repeat, right? Then you do get a lot more value going, because you're not just coming in from the frontal angle. So that's something else we want to work on. We also just spend sometimes, like, in between fights where we could be doing some work where we have a lot of mobility on ball, so we can go in and do stuff and get out very easily. And you want to just make sure that you're constantly going in with your abilities and doing stuff, because we just get a ton of ult charge, right? If we can go around and slam and roll through people, that's how we get a ton of ult charge and do a lot. So, like, rolling through one single person gets us 4% on our ult. So that means that if we roll through, you know, 4 people, that's 4 times 4 is 16, right? So we get 16 ult charge off of that. Same thing with, like, our slam. So look to just actively be going in and doing more. Don't rely so heavily on your gun, as we're doing this a lot, where we're just kind of spamming at people from a distance. Bring it out when people are low. Bring it out when you know, someone's out of position and you're not really going to be under pressure. But if we just, another thing is, just remember, you don't always have to, after you go in with a slam, you don't always have to follow it up with a left click, especially if you're under pressure and you're gonna die, and you see you're gonna die. Look to roll around and grab health packs and supports more often. It seems like with awareness, we're generally, our awareness is actually pretty decent. It just seems like we're not really aware of our own health bar. So make sure you're paying attention to your health bar, and you're trying to get healing. You're not going in when you're low. But besides that, it seems like we generally are aware of where enemies are, and we're aware of how the fight's going. ultimates I think are very, very solid so far. So besides just the thing that we talked about of using it early, we do
Mhm.
have pretty good timing with it. We look to use it very effectively, and we kind of we do a good grapple tech. I like that we slam afterwards. So again, it seems like we understand how to be playing ball correctly. Um, so that is pretty much it. Just for the strengths and weaknesses of ball. So you can go ahead and get into a game here.
All right, for sure.
Now, are you queuing for only tank here? I think you also play DPS, right?
I also play DPS, but I think I would just need to use my priority pass if I want to get a game.
Alrighty.
So, are you in the states?
Yes, I am.
Oh yeah, I'm in Canada,
All right. I saw PSC, so I just automatically assume like whenever I see that, it's
California.
yeah, I'll automatically assume California. Well, of course the queue's long now. After we go into that, it was like instantaneous last time.
Yeah. When you're prepping for a comp, do you use any of those like workshop maps where it's like it would be like a farm mercy like flying around you and have to shoot her down, or do you use anything like that before you're
Um,
prepping for a game?
I think that stuff like that can be a good way to warm up and practice. You never want to, of course, like when it comes to any aim trainers, I think in general aim trainers can be very helpful. It's just you don't want to overlap your actual playtime by using that. You don't want to like kind of get rid of playtime by using aim trainers. But if you're just warming up for games, then yeah, that's a good way to practice. You can also go into sorry, excuse me, burp there. You can also go into custom games that require aim usage. There's a few ones that I like to use, or just or like deathmatch is also another great one. I'm just all deathmatched out because I played deathmatch nonstop for like 2 years. Um, but FFA deathmatch is really good as it's a environment where there's no teammates and there's no objectives. It's just you, your mechanics, and shooting at people. You have like 4v4 Nano Blade, which is pretty good for just general warm up aim practice. You have Widow
Mm,
headshots only. Try hard FFA is another really fantastic one. Really anything that's just getting your blood flowing, because the thing that you're warming up is your mechanics essentially. As mechanics is the fastest thing that's going to get rusty every day. Your general game knowledge doesn't just go away, but your ability to hit shots and aim will,
right.
or won't go away fast. But if it would be my correction.
So beyond Overwatch and your coaching, do you play any other games in your free time?
um, So in general, it's a lot of just Overwatch. I'd say was like my main game that I usually play. Though I do play a bunch of other games just when I'm hanging out with friends. A lot of more like party game type of stuff. Nothing
Hmm.
that I'm super competitive in. But play Brawlhalla with friends, Overcooked 2, Night Squad. It's just a bunch of non-competitive games.
Right. Have you played Pummel Party before?
Pummel Party, I know what it is, and I think I've seen gameplay on it, though I have not
Hmm.
played it before.
That one's not too bad. They keep it updated pretty regularly too, which is
Nice.
nice.
Are you queued for tank too, or are you only queued for DPS here?
I'm only queued for DPS here, but
Oh, okay.
I'm just sitting in the training, just shooting boss with McCree.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want fat, I mean, if you want to go over DPS specifically, then you can queue DPS. But if you're just looking for either or, then queuing for both of them just might get a faster queue overall.
Right, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's completely
Well,
fine if you want to go over DPS.
I got a game here, so I'll just
All right,
play.
spectating.
Hmm.
Now entering the temple of
So,
the
are there
gods.
any particular combo or like characters that you're not really sure of what counters them or what you should be swapping when you're getting countered?
Yeah, it's definitely some like some other heroes. Like I know like some basic counters.
Mm,
And I'm like somewhat familiar with like DPS counters to tanks.
mm.
But there's some things where it's like I'm playing and they have like a Sigma and they have like a soldier, but they have other things and they have like a brig.
Attack
And then I'm like, I kind of want to play Doomfist, but at the same time, I don't want to because just gonna get. And then they
Mhm.
maybe have like another character with more stun, so I'm like, I don't really know what to do here.
Yeah, so in the game, I probably say there's not many hard counters. What's different in Overwatch and how you actually counter people is you counter people with play styles, and against every single team composition, whether it be your team comp and the enemy team comp, you're swapping up how you're playing accordingly. It's not letting me okay, there it goes. Now I can see you. Um, yeah, so you're swapping up how you're playing according to what they're running. Now there are some hard counters in the game, but that's kind of how it runs. So I also need to kind of, I guess, get a grasp on what your hero pool is.
Oh, I would say like I could play all hit scans.
Uh,
Oh, I was kind of just running around mindlessly there.
all right.
Here, what else could I play? Yeah, so like it would be like Ash, Doom, Chunk, McCree,
Mhm.
Soldier, then maybe like a few others that I kind of know like have to play, and then there's others like what's something I don't. I'm really bad with Genji
Yeah.
because there's just a lot of stuff that goes into being him and stuff.
So here on Soldier, don't run main with your team. You're a very flanky character on Soldier, so you want to
Right,
go on off angles and flanks with him because he has his sprinting that he can get on flanks very easily. He has his health pack, which allows him to survive off on his own. So his kit allows for flanking a lot. So rather than just going straight with your team there, maybe like right side would have been much better, where you can maybe run up to high ground or
right.
just get on a different angle from them that gets you around shields very easily. So there's more like positioning there was a big issue.
Surrender my will. Helden sterben nicht.
Oh yeah.
make sure you're paying attention to kill feed, so you can probably that wasn't a great situation to run in. As we were down a bunch of people, right? When you're down people, that means you've pretty lost the fight there.
Allow me to repair the damage.
Anyone need some healing? Activating the barrier. I need a doctor. I need a doctor. I need a doctor. I need a doctor. I need a doctor.
Alright, target priority. We spend a lot of time shooting at tanks. Tanks are not really the things we want to be shooting at most of the time on any character. Well, I guess that's something we can talk more in depth on after the game's done. But we want to make sure we're focusing supports and DPS, not tanks.
Securing the objective.
An ominous wind.
I've got you in my sights.
That's a rhyme.
Alrighty, so another thing that needs to be worked on is awareness of whether or not we're winning or losing fights. That's not as important on Hammond, who can just be anywhere at any time because of his mobility, but on a character like Soldier, that is really important. Make sure you're paying attention to kill feed. Kill feed will tell you whether or not you're winning or losing. Again, that's another thing we'll just go into depth on after this game is done. We'll talk about a few different things, just because we don't have enough time in between fights here to go over that.
Hello there.
Hello. Take cover.
What's going
On
on?
ground.
Allow me to repair the damage.
Job done.
I require assistance.
No.
Lights on. What the dog?
This is a mess, dude.
Gotta make sure that we're putting some distance in between us and other characters. We're more mid-range when it comes to our kit, but Reaper and Reinhardt are not mid-range. They're very close range, so we want to make sure that we're kind of outranging them here, not
So
letting
do you
them
think it
get
would
on
be
top of
better?
us.
Do you think it would be better if I just like sit up here?
Yep, probably much better than trying to run into them.
Okay.
Get into position.
Alrighty. Make sure that when you are doing that, though, that you're timing it kind of with when your team's going in, because if you're
Okay.
not, then that means
Because
that all of them look
yeah.
at you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a young man anymore.
Helden sterben nicht. Dein Schutzengel ist da.
Enemies re-engaging.
Has my name written all over it.
So like here, for example, we could probably go in like right side. Right side would probably be better than left side because left side is kind of a low ground area where right side gives us a high ground.
Right.
So running in on the right side would probably be better. We're going to talk about a bit about positioning as well after this. Oh, I also forgot I was streaming. That's my bad.
Oh, that's fine.
Alright.
It's also just a wonky. Like if in this game particularly, would it have been better or more beneficial for me to like attempt to like counter, like maybe the tanks.
Reaper Reaper would
My
be
initial
pretty
thought
decent
would be
here.
Reaper, yeah.
Yeah, Reaper would be pretty decent here because Reaper is good up against Reaper, right?
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Reaper's good against Roadhog. Reaper's decent against Reinhardt. And then like just in general, there's nothing on that team that really stops a Reaper. So yeah, Reaper probably would be maybe a little bit better in that situation than a Soldier.
Because that's something I definitely that right there is something I definitely struggle with. Is like when I'm not like doing the best that I could, but I'm not doing terrible. So there's a hesitance in me to switch.
Yeah, so it's never gonna really be about like how good am I doing unless you're absolutely fragging. It's more like what's good against their character. So in general, I guess let's take some time to talk about that because we didn't have time to go over that when the game started. What was the composition that you had talked about at the very beginning that you were saying like you weren't really sure what to run into? It was like Sigma, Brig, another stun.
Like say if like the the Sigma and the Soldier really like succeeding in what they were doing, and then like Doom is an obvious counter to both of those people,
Mm.
but they say have some pretty harsh stun, like maybe they have, I don't know, maybe like they have maybe
McCree,
like
Brig.
a McCree Brig, maybe like
Mm.
maybe a Sombra, stuff like that,
All
maybe a
right.
Hog too.
Yeah, a number of characters kind of do go well into that, right? If they have a bunch of close range stuns, then you run characters that don't fall victim to close range stuns, right? So you run a soldier would be decent into that, right? Because you get up behind their shields and they can't stop you against that. Reaper probably wouldn't be good because of the stuns. Any long range hit skin character you want to play would be pretty decent against that, right? As you just out distance, you get around shields. And then that's how you would end up essentially just countering them with your playstyle, and you just don't want to run into you don't want to play characters that are gonna kind of do poorly against that. So essentially, the first thing that you should be doing each game is looking at your team comp and looking at the enemy team comp because that gives you an idea of how team comp dictates play style. So we're going to be playing differently against each comp, but then also we can also look to swap our characters at the very beginning of the game. I think something that might be helpful, and this is something that I think is something that you're going to this is going to be the most up to you thing out of anything that I say today because this is just very up to like your opinion and what your goals are when it comes to the game. If you're just looking to have fun, then go ahead and continue to do this. But it seems like you have a very wide hero pool across a ton of different characters with tank and DPS. When it comes to just improving, you're probably gonna be a lot better off if you're trying to narrow that down a bit. A good example of this is that let's say that we have 1,000 hours and we're putting that 1,000 hours on 10 different characters across DPS and tanks. That means that we put 100 hours into each character. Now, if we compress that to one role and maybe 2 to 3 characters, now that is or let's say 2 just for example. Now that's 500 hours into each character. Or if we have 3, that's 330 hours into each character, right? So that's a significant booster, and every single character on across different roles and the different characters all have different play styles, different kits, different ways that you play them, and if we're spreading out our play time between so many different characters, we're gonna have a hard time getting a grasp on anything in particular. So usually when you're trying to play competitively, it's really good to pick 2 to 3 characters in one specific role. But like I said, if you're just playing to have fun, like I know you play quick play a ton, nothing against you looking to just play everything. You just might want to narrow it down slightly.
Right. Well, the main reason I got this was to because most of my friends like one of my friends is probably like a diamond Ana, and then like a few other of my friends are pretty consistent plats. So I was just I was mostly getting this just like get some tips and pointers that can maybe help me get to not necessarily like climb a decent ways up. It's just like get to my friends level, and then we can all play and stuff like that.
In competitive is that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so then if your goal is improvement, then that would be probably one of the things I'd recommend is try to pick either tank or DPS, and then within that, rather than playing 6-7 DPS, try to narrow it down. It's probably gonna be best if you narrow it down to one category. So if you're picking tanks, that you have main tank and off tank, and then in DPS you have hit scan DPS and flex DPS. Like hit scan DPS would be any instant shot characters, McCree, Ash, Widowmaker, and then Junkrat, and those would be projectile characters. So because it's hit scan, those usually translate really well into each other, and then flex DPS just kind of plays everything else. So flex DPS is what I play, and if you're looking to be a little bit more flexible, then that's kind of the role that you can take. And when I say this, I never say that essentially I don't want you to take this as like never play anything else, right? This is more like a very heavily lean towards the characters. You can still swap if you feel like you're being hard countered. You can swap if you just want to have fun and quick play, but you're gonna be improving at a much faster rate if you're kind of narrowing in on something in particular.
All right.
All right, so now getting into the stuff that we were talking about before. So essentially, target priority. So let's start with that. Target priority is essentially we don't want to shoot at tanks most of the time. Tanks have 2 to 3 times the health. They have tanking abilities. They have shields. They have bubbles, defense matrix, right? All that jazz, and they're very difficult to kill. On top of that, supports and DPS have more statistical output. So yes, tank is a very powerful role and they have their own role in the game, but that's not when it comes to actually outputting raw data of statistics. So when it comes to damage, DPS do the damage. When it comes to healings, tanks can't heal. So they just create space for those two roles, but DPS and supports are actually what you want to make sure that you're focusing, even on a character like Reaper, who is thought of as a quote-unquote tank buster. Most of the time, you're even on a character like Reaper, you're looking to target supports too, and then tanks are kind of a side snack that you can go for. Now, what that means is that we want to be actively seeking out the supports and DPS and not going for tanks. But there are some times where we do shoot tanks. When they're low, when they're out of position, when they're the only thing that we can shoot at. Like when we're walking back from spawn, we're just spamming in there, right? And there's just tanks, then go ahead, shoot all you want at tanks. But we want to make sure we're doing our best to avoid them. And a lot of that comes down to taking off angles. So off angles are essentially, let's say, like the enemy team's there, our team's here. If we're just shooting down the main angle right here, that means that we're just shooting at the tanks, shooting into shields, right? But if we just want to get on their back line, we can just come in here real quick and then just get a kill real quick, right, on their sideline, and then that is an off angle, right? It's very safe, it's very fast, so safe and short, right, and not you're not in danger there, right?
Right.
So you can get the same effect if enemy team's here, our team's there. We can run around up to the high ground real quick here, and then now we have a fantastic position where we can get over their shield, shoot at their backline, right? Now, on most characters, you're not going to want to go on flanks. There's a difference between an off angle and a flank. A flank is if we went like this and went all the way around, and then either came in through here or we came in through here, right? And then now we've taken twice the amount of time, and in that time, our team is losing the fight because we're not there. And then on top of that, it means that this is a lot riskier of a position because, we don't have team support, right? So Soldier is unique, and he can actually go for those types of plays a lot more often than a character like McCree could, because McCree doesn't have health pack and he doesn't have sprint. So if McCree went for that, it takes him a longer period of time, and he also doesn't have self-sustain. So on Soldier, you can go for flanks. On most other characters, you're not going to want to go for them too often. You also just don't want to you want to make sure you're not doing that in the middle of the fight, but Soldier is a lot more flanky. So just make sure you're getting around shields, going for the back line. Now, paying attention to kill feed. Kill feed essentially tells you whether or not you're winning or losing fights, right? It tells you the flow of the fight. When we are up 1 to 2 people, that means that we have an advantage, right? When we have an advantage, we can play more aggressively because they have less people to kill us and shoot at us. When we are up 2 to 3 people, that is where we've pretty much won the fight, right? At that point, we don't want to use ultimates, and we also want to just look to play super, super aggressively because we can go and get stagger kills. So you familiar with that term, stagger?
Yeah.
Yep, so, you understand that, right? You want to push forward so that you can stagger them and waste their time. Now, this also goes the exact opposite way. When you're down 1 to 2 people, that means that you're at a disadvantage, and therefore you want to be playing a little bit more passively. Though that didn't mean that you didn't lose the fight, though, not yet. Okay, when you're down 2 to 3 people, that is where you've pretty much lost the fight, right? And now you don't want to use ultimates, and you want to make sure that you're getting out if you can. And if you can't get out, then you want to look to let them kill you as fast as possible, so you don't end up staggering yourself, right? And then when you stagger yourself, that means that you waste time, and you end up, either making them run in without you, which puts them at a disadvantage, or just they have to wait for you and they waste a bunch of time. So in our last game, we ended up kind of not really paying attention to kill feed, and then we went in and used our ultimate when our team was dead, when we were down like 3 people. And then on top of that, we also kind of stayed in there really long one time, and we kind of went in aggressively and then ended up staggering, just because we went in without our team, right? So when they were all dead again. So just make sure we're paying attention to that, so we're not going in without them and using ultimates when everyone's dead.
We all got it.
We're also going to go over positioning here real quick. So this is just general positioning. This applies to every character in the game, most FPS games. If we're standing right here and there's 10 enemies looking at us, right, and they're all shooting at us, it takes us, and we'll not use sprint just because not every character has sprint here, but even if we were using sprint, the same concept applies. It takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Now, from here, we are no longer able to get shot at, right? We're safe. You can't shoot through solid objects, so we can't get shot at here. But in the time it took us to get here, we died, because that was way too far out in the open. Therefore, the absence of cover is poor positioning. Now, from right here, if they start shooting at us, it takes us half a second, and then now we're ducking behind cover and they can't shoot at us. Half a second, duck behind cover, they can't shoot at us. So therefore, the usage of cover, so staying next to cover, is good positioning, right? So we want to make sure we're staying next to cover. Now, there's a ton of different types of cover usage, right? We can use slopes like so. We can use pillars, right, in between shots when we're reloading, when we're low HP, right? Corners are a big major one. Yeah, you can use objects. So you can use the payload like this, right? Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, right? High ground is also a fantastic one. You want to make sure you're taking high ground whenever it's an option. 3 different major things the high ground gives you, and this is why I was saying like go right side on temple rather than left side, is because on both first point and second point, right side has a high ground, the left side is a low ground, and it means that you're coming in at a poor angle. High ground does 3 different major things for you. First off, all of the platform acts as natural cover. Okay, they can see us, they can't see us. They can see us, we crouch, now they can't see us, right? They can see us, now they can't see us. They can see us, now they can't see us, right? So all high ground acts as natural cover. The other thing it does is half the characters in the game can't get up to us on a high ground, right? Unless they run all the way around to the stairway. And then the other half of the characters that can get to us, they require abilities to get to us, right? So then we bait out abilities and we just sprint away, or we drop to our team, right? So it's, again, a lot more survivability. And then third thing the high ground does for us is gives us an insane amount of visibility, right? In 1 second we can be over here shooting at stuff, and the next second we can be on the opposite side of the map shooting at stuff, right? And on a high ground you can see both the high ground and below the high ground. When you're on a low ground, you can't really see the high ground too well, right? So those are some of the major things I wanted to go over there. Now, I think the other one, just knowing when to swap different characters comes a lot down to, more so down to playstyle than it does on character swaps. This game isn't very character swappy when it comes to countering things. There are some times where running a character is bad, but besides that, most of the time if you stick with your own character, you just learn how to play your character differently against the things that you're bad at, right? An obvious example of something that counters. Another thing is like stuns counters Doomfist. Hits can counter Pharah, right? Because they can kill Pharah pretty easily. So those are examples, but there's not too many instances of that across characters. But if there are any particular things that you're just confused about, then you can just bring that up, or like, after we're done here, you can message me and ask me about them. But for the most part, you're not going to find too much, of a need to swap. But if you ever feel like you do need to swap your character and you're confused about what you can swap to, then that's where you just, bring that up specifically,
Double kill.
right?
Right.
So are there any other, I guess, instances where you'd be confused about what to swap to?
Double kill.
I don't know. It's more. I don't really think I could come up with any off the
Yeah.
top of my head, but there's definitely like instances where I'm like, man, I don't feel like I'm doing my job
Mhm.
in my current role, and I definitely feel like I could be doing better with a different character.
Triple kill.
Yeah.
The fight ain't
Um,
over yet.
and a lot of the times that is going to be a very slight increase in what you could be doing, and I probably say most of that of you saying, I'm not doing too much is gonna come from just our inability or our lack of an understanding of how to play into a composition, right? Because a character like Soldier is probably like one of the most flexible characters in the game. Um, there's a ton of characters that are flexible. Like McCree is one of the most flexible characters in the game, right? There's a ton of characters that can just run into anything. Ball is like the most busted tank at the moment, right? You can run Ball into pretty much anything. So it's really more so of knowing how to play against something rather than knowing what to play against something in this game.
All right.
Right. And then I guess like the thing is like I'm trying to think of like how we can talk about that. So how to play against things. It's gonna be hard if we're talking about generalized, because like you were saying, like we were talking about, you have like 10 different things you play, and that's gonna be hard to say. You played like this on every character because it's all gonna be character based. But in general, there are like, are you aware of like the 3 different compositions in the game? Maybe we can start there.
There's um there's brawl, there's dive, and then there's another one I don't think I know.
All right, well then why don't we just go over that real quick, and then hopefully that can give us some stuff to work with here. All right, so I'm going to send you a picture here on Discord.
Okay.
So essentially, there's 3 comps in the game. You have dive, you have brawl, and you have spam. And then the middle one there's hybrid, and that's where you're pretty much just running anything. That's like a ranked comp where you're not really running anything in particular. And in those comps, you don't really have any major play style. You're just all doing your own thing. But in every other composition, you have a play style. Like when you're on this comp or the enemy team is on this comp, they should be playing this way, right?
Mhm.
On a dive, it's a little bit complex. It's probably the most complex out of the 3 comps. But you're playing far away to start off, and then you're diving close in. And then you start off slow. I don't have this written here, but you start off slow, and then you get faster and faster and faster. Depending on how many kills you get, depending on how many ultimates you have, right? So you get faster with kills and ultimates. Now, brawl and spam are where it gets very, very one-dimensional, very easy to understand. And this is why it's super important to know what comp you're running. When you are on brawl, that's going to be like your Mei, Ryan, Reaper, Zarya, Lucio, right? All very close range characters. They want to play close in on top of you because their kits are close, and therefore, the longer the fight draws out, the more long range characters get value because they have more time to shoot at you and spam at you and do damage, right? So they want to both play close and fast, because the faster they play, the less time it gives the enemy team to do something against them. Now, spam is the exact opposite of that. Spam is like a double shield, or it's Orisa, Sigma, Roadhog, any snipers, any hit scan, or not any hit scan, but a lot of hit scan characters. It's going to be like Baptiste, Mercy, Zenyatta, right? That's all spam comp. They want to play far away because they have a ton of range, and therefore,
Right.
because they want to play far, they also want to take the fight at a very slow pacing, because the longer the fight draws out, the more time they have to shoot from a far range, right? So, therefore, those 2 comps play exactly the opposite of each other. A brawl comp wins if they can get in on top of something, and the spam comp wins if they can tiptoe away from the brawl comp. So this is an easy way to understand how your playstyle should change according to what character you're on, because each character kind of falls into one of these categories. What team comp your team has, because each team comp is going to fall into one of these or in hybrid, and then what is the enemy team comp. So therefore, once we identify all of these, then we can start to make decisions on how should we be playing, because team comp dictates your play style and how you're playing differently, both with distance and pacing mainly.
All right.
Alrighty, so we are about to run out of time here, so why don't we do a quick wrap review of all of the different things that we talked about, and then we'll go into and then we'll just do the wrap up at the end there, talking about the main things that you need to work on. So we started off on ball, started playing him. On ball, we're just gonna go around the clock here. Just strengths and weaknesses. Very strong mechanics when it just and it's same thing on your soldier too. Right, we understand how to shoot at stuff. We have good general grapple and slam mechanics. Think E you might need to use a bit more often. So
Okay.
your E and your slam you want to make sure you're using more. I think grapple you're using quite a bit, but it's more so in our play style of how often we're going in, because we're going in pretty not that often. We're going in once in a while. You want to make sure that you're constantly a nuisance, because like we said, your playstyle on ball is your disruptor. So you want to be a constant nuisance so that they have to turn around and look at you, and that creates space for your team. When they look at you, they're not looking at your team. So look to use your shields more, as often as you get them, to keep yourself alive. Then make sure that you're slamming through their whole team, or slamming into their whole team and grappling through. With your slam, you can pretty much slam off of anything, so just look to use your slam right as often as possible, so just get damage in. You don't always have to shoot at stuff,
Right.
because you can, especially if they have a bunch of damage to shoot at you. It's more so when you don't have pressure and something's low, right? Also, just avoid just long distance, just shooting at stuff normally. Rely heavily on your ability usage, and then you finish things off after you land your abilities. Ultimate usage, very fantastic. Probably one of the stronger parts of your kit besides just general mechanics. So we understand how to use it, and we use it very frequently on our ball. So that's good on that end. Ball positioning really isn't ever too big of a deal, but when it comes to positioning, you want to make sure that you're not always just coming in from the frontal angle, but you're coming in from the sides and staying behind them. That means that you're taking a lot less damage and being more of a nuisance while also dying less. Awareness is probably going to be one of the bigger things on your ball. Make sure you're paying attention to your health, and you're not going in
Right.
when you're only at half HP. Go look for supports to heal you, get health packs. And then probably one of or the biggest thing on your ball was just that we very infrequently did things. We want to make sure we're upping our actions per minute, and that we are more actively doing damage, rolling through people, slamming. We want to make sure that we're not just sitting around after fights are done, but we're looking to just roll and look for things to do, such as get stagger kills and whatnot, and just roll through and get ult charge. We just want to make sure that we're doing things. It seemed like we kind of sat around a lot of the time.
Right.
Now back to soldier. I think we only played ball and soldier here. Mainly soldier.
We're all soldiers now.
A little bit different. I think you have a good grasp on your helix. You have a good grasp on your no problem with any of your ability usage. I don't think we don't have a problem with that. Though we do get into a problem when it comes to playstyle and positioning and awareness are the main ones. Ultimate usage. Make sure you're not using it after you've won or lost a fight.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing as with your mines. Make sure you're looking to use it at the very start of fights so that you're getting more value and you're not holding on to it for too long.
Double kill.
Besides that, I didn't see too many ults being used, but so I
Double
probably wouldn't say it's like that. That's probably not the biggest thing you need to work on, but it's also not the thing that you're best with. General mechanics, very nice. So mechanics and ability usage are probably your stronger suits on soldier.
double kill.
Weak suits, positioning. Positioning, make sure that you're taking off angles and flanks. You're not just sitting on the main frontal angle. Then that also goes in with your target priority and making sure you're not just spamming at tanks the whole time, but you're shooting at the things you need to shoot at. Make sure ball doesn't need it as much, but on any other character that's not ball, you want to make sure that you're sticking next to cover, right? And you're not just walking out in the open. Take high grounds as much as you can. Good positioning is usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Awareness, make sure you're paying attention to kill feed. Watch when you're winning or losing fights. 1 to 2 is an advantage. 2 to 3 is a one fight or a lost fight. Now I think that is pretty much it. So main points. Probably say that across everything, play style is probably going to be the biggest thing, and then that's actually going to be enhanced once you start to focus in on things and you actually
Right.
start to learn people's play styles more. Because it seems like on ball, our place both ball and soldier is a big thing was just we didn't really understand how the character works or like kind of what your job is or what you should be doing. Even though we understand our ability usage, we understand and we have great mechanics, we just didn't know what we were doing or when to do what, right? So that's probably going to be the biggest thing to work on is play style for this one. Number two is it probably splits up a little bit across ball and soldier. So I guess number two, so for soldier, the number two would be our positioning. For ball, number two would be just making sure that you're constantly doing something and using your abilities more actively.
Double.
Probably be number two. So kind of ability usage would be your number two for ball. Number three for soldier would be, let's see, your awareness. And then for ball, that's probably going to be not mines, not for ball. We'll probably chalk that up to awareness as well. And then besides that, good ultimate usage mainly across both characters, and then good mechanics in general. No real problems with mechanics. Do you have any questions about anything that we talked about?
Double. Triple kill.
No, I think that's all. That's all good. Yeah.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna end the recording here.